Hello, everybody from iCAN. I'm Howard Lim, and I'm from How Creative. And what I'll be presenting is how to move your product, service, or information as a world-class brand into the marketplace. So let's begin. So my purpose here is to deliver world-class applicable content, okay, so you can use. By the way, this recording is just for you and not to be distributed. And I want to look at how you could build a brand, a business, and the opportunities during this crisis, and how to elevate your purpose and wealth. So a little bit about background about who I am. I started to realize what my actual purpose was when I was 5 years old. When the first time I ever finger painted, I knew that I wanted to create. After finishing my schooling, I became a disruptive solution provider for the Fortune 500 companies who we represented. For example, we helped out the relaunch of Apple with Steve Jobs with the G3 generation. We actually helped Philips and MGM come out with DVDs to the marketplace to take over VHS and beta tapes. We helped position Disney, Lion King, the Broadway show to the investors. We helped position the city of Santa Monica, and the list goes on. So we were considered disruptors and coming up with solutions that others could not come up with. We've produced $1 billion in revenues, value, and equity for our clients. I had a revelation about 20 years ago that I want to invert this. Why do 95% of companies fail or become stagnant within the first 2 to 5 years? And my commitment with my company was to invert this number to successful businesses. So I'm going to be showing you how to create a product and be more sustainable in the marketplace. What does it take to be more sustainable in the marketplace and scalable? We now impact all size businesses. For example, Monarch Wealth Strategy is a service company in Santa Barbara. We are anticipated to grow over to $1 billion. WSS, we've actually helped position it for 52 retail stores where they started. And when they met us during the recession, the time of recession, we actually grew them over 100 retail stores nationwide. We're actually in the LA Times for that. We grew this company, ATI Telecommunication Company. The list goes on. The point being is that, again, I'm going to be showing you how to take shortcuts to the marketplace and how to put the right processes and DNA in place. So again, we work with startups, or we work with companies that need makeovers or need expansion or to an exit strategy. So let's begin with what is a brand and what it is not. A brand is not your logo. It's not your product, service. It's not even your business. It's not what you say, it's what everyone else is saying. So you could say all you want about your product, but if people aren't receiving what you want them to see or hear, they're never going to be able to respond and get that your product differentiates itself from others or is better than other products. So again, it's not what you say, it's how do you influence them to think what you want them to say, okay? It resides in the heart and mind of the consumer. And I say this, it's the expectation that's matched to the experience. So you got to create an expectation. Then you have to deliver on an experience when someone uses your product or service. And when you create that match, then that creates a brand in their mind that they could trust. So for example, let's just say those who are watching, if you had a chance to win $1 million on a racetrack, straight racetrack on asphalt, would you choose to drive a brand new tractor or a brand new Ferrari 2020 model? Of course, the answer is a Ferrari. The question is, how many of you watching this have driven either, neither, or one of these vehicles? Most likely you haven't driven neither of these 2020 vehicles, but already you know which one would be the fastest vehicle. That's what it is to be branded in the mind of the consumer when they have a story about your brand that you've articulated, okay? So there's only two ways to brand: from the hip or by design. Unfortunately, most people are doing it from the hip, and that's why there's so much failure. So you have your idea, which is, let's say, a product, right? An invention. You want to get it in the marketplace. Most of you take your idea, you go to the marketplace, and you forget the biggest asset you could create, which is your brand. Or you're going to the wrong people to create your brand, which causes failure as well. So for example, let's say that you want to save money, you hire someone as a graphic designer. You go to the 30-yard line and you realize before you should have hired this graphic designer, what you should have done is you should have figured out what is your overall position of your product and how much market share you're going to choose to actually create for yourself and also dominate in the market space. So then you're penalized. And let's say you're on a 25-yard line or a 15-yard line, and you get to the 50-yard line and you realize that you create a logo, not a brand mark, okay? Then you get penalized again to the 35-yard mark, and then you go and then you realize that you actually then started to do social media before figuring out your brand promise. So this is what happens a lot of times, that companies are hiring the wrong people, like graphic designers, advertising, marketing, when branding is a highly specialized skill, which is a collaboration of all the parts that make up the whole. So you never get where you want to go, which is the unfortunate, which is the end zone. What happens then, it becomes really a waste of time and capital, and I should say revenue and resources, okay? So you have an idea, you have the best idea in the world that you feel can make a big difference for others, but at the same time, you're marketing, you're branding it totally incorrectly. Here's the other big problem that I see companies face, is they hire a fragmented team. One company, let's say, they do the social media, another do the website, another create the app design, okay? The other ones that do the advertising. But there's no one at the top actually managing all the different service providers so they could all roll in the same direction with the same message, okay? So what happens, unfortunately, is that I call it the Sybil effect, that you look like a whole bunch of different brands rather than one unified brand, one voice, one look and feel, okay? So this is what I call the silos. So unfortunately, it's like trying to push up a big boulder uphill. You're never getting where you want to go. You might have, again, the best idea that could actually reshape and recreate the reality on this planet with your product or service or idea, but the problem is you're not putting things in the right sequence as far as getting out there in the mind of the consumer, okay? So when is branding by design needed? It is needed now, okay? When you even have an idea, you really have to start thinking how you're going to get in the mind of the consumer. If you have no consumer, you have no revenue, you have no sales. So again, branding is about how are you going to get in the mind and heart of the consumer, okay? The other reason why it's needed now, when you're creating a new company, a new service, a new product, there's also a name change, or you want to revitalize a brand because it's outdated. Or let's say you're going through a merger and acquisition. These are times that you really need to consider branding or rebranding. So what is the actual sequence then by design of actually building a brand? First is positioning. Second is building the identity. Then third is marketing. Most companies, they have their idea, they haven't even figured out their position of what's going to make them successful, and they go directly into the market without building the identity to communicate to the consumer who they are, what they do, what they stand for, and what makes you different, okay? So positioning comes first. So what happens in positioning? Well, in positioning, what you want to look at is how you could build your assets, okay, where the assets are linked to the company's identity, okay, that you are providing to the consumer. So in other words, you're creating equity. You are building a link between your product and to the customer, and it's building equity for your company overall as a brand. So let me demonstrate this. If it wasn't for Coca-Cola, the color red, and if it wasn't for open happiness, and if it wasn't for the shape of the bottle, and if it wasn't for the name, it'd be only worth $60 billion. But because of all these associations, so when you see the Coca-Cola bottle, you actually get an idea of what space they're in. And then through their advertising and marketing, you get an idea that it's a refreshing drink. And all their advertising and marketing is focusing on giving the experience of hope, open happiness, okay? So there's a sense of joy. Because of all those associations, physically, by the shape of the bottle, the color red that they own in the cola space, and then the actual images that float in your mind that you remember from their commercial, it's worth $120 billion. So this is where brand design is different from graphic design. Graphic design is designed to really, for short term, to put out fires. I need a brochure, I need a logo, but it's not building equity into the company for long-term gain. And this is where the big distinction is between a brand designer and a graphic designer. Brand designer is building things that actually are creating value for your company and equity. Graphic design is not really adding value. It might be putting out a fire, but it's not really building equity, okay? Really important to get. Now, one of the key elements, okay, so a brand is not the logo, but if it's done right, a brand mark, okay, is probably, the name and the brand mark are the most valuable assets you could own. Building a brand mark, if it's done right, from a logo to a brand mark, that's 10% of branding, okay? It's 10% of brand building, I should say, okay? But a very important asset. So I'm going to move into evidence-based case studies of how this all comes together. How are you getting your product out there? So here's building a business and brand from scratch. Okay, so Optic Wash was born out of a garage. They had no business idea, no brand, no marketing, confused where to begin, no idea how to sequence capital, mixed message from vendors where to start, but no one to really guide them from start to finish. And that's when I said, Brian, I could help you out. We could create this from scratch. Here's his idea here, where it actually washes eyewear and then it dries it. And so we knew that we wanted to create a kiosk. And this is what he had made in his garage to show me. We end up doing what I call the positioning of looking at the business, the brand, and the market. What is going to be your business model? How do you plan to make money? Your brand, what kind of your brand do you want to wrap around it? And then the third element is how are you going to strategize and market to your ideal target market? That's what I mean by positioning, okay? When we started off with them, and I do these 3-day intensive, we figured out their brand vision, okay? The brand vision is why you're in business to exist and what difference are you making for others. So their brand vision is we change how you clean your glasses forever by eliminating traditional frustrated methods, okay? Like using, your shirt or using something, that cloth that could scratch the lenses. We also realized to overcome the pattern, we need to do a sense of entertainment. So we'll be entertained using our product while having a clear vision of your surrounding environment. That's their vision. Now they have the name Shade Saver, and I explained the importance of naming. If they would have went to the marketplace with Shade Saver, they would have left half the money on the table, because it's not that just cleans sunglasses, it also cleans reading glasses. So the name itself was limited of the market of what they could own in the market space. They would have left 50% of the market on the board. So we came up with many, many different names for them that really resonated with what the product does, okay? We came up with Optic Wash, and then we came up with hundreds of different marks that represented what it does to a certain degree, being symbolic, and at the same time that was unique from anything that's out there, okay? So it's important that you create a mark that separates you from the rest of the pack and that differentiates you, and that's easy to recall in the mind of the consumer. Again, it's all about influencing the consumer of how you want them to think of you, okay? You could say all that you want, but the question is it being received in the mind and heart of the consumer to be able to recall what you want them to think? Most companies, unfortunately, are not doing that. So we came up with many concepts, and this is the final project that we helped design. This is where, again, the instructional, okay, video comes up, teaches you how to use the product. This is the kiosk that's designed. And we also knew that we had to go through a very strategic plan as far as how we want to get and showcase the product. So we bought it, they bought a truck, we did the vehicle wrap, and we said introduced in the world's first eyewear cleaning kiosk, because it is the first. Created the app so people could actually purchase using the product, using the kiosk, using their phone. Technology is so imperative to use and to utilize nowadays, especially when it comes to smartphones, specifically the iPhone, okay? You want to be able to make it easy for your consumer to purchase or to use your product or service, for that matter, or information, okay? So you want, as much as you can, to embed technology, okay? This is Brian here at the Spree Recon Show, the biggest show for where kiosks meet big retail. And he was definitely the talk of the town. By the way, we met the biggest mall owners in the world. I told him, let's have the strategy and meeting 3. We met 5 of the biggest mall owners, and they all wanted his product, okay? As a result, we won multiple awards. And why did we want to win multiple awards? Is because we wanted to build credibility to his product. Because here's how it works when it comes to a buyer, whether if it's a strategic partner or a consumer. They first have to know you, then they have to like you, then they have to trust you. When you build in awards, you're building that trust faster to be accepted into the marketplace, okay? So iCAN is really important for you, because when you win this award, it's going to actually work in your favor when it comes to building relationships either to investors, partners, or even having that award on your website, because it builds that credibility, okay? Really important. So you're doing the right thing by attending iCAN. This is just showing you how we're able to take a product and get it into all these different retail spaces, okay, with their actual kiosks. We went directly for the top because, again, we started off with strategy. Who do we want to be as far as world class? Who do we need to meet? And we reverse engineered it from the idea, the design, and into the marketplace. It was all strategic. Most companies don't do that. 99% of companies, again, they come up with their idea, they go in the market, but they don't have a clear plan. They do not have a strategic plan of how they're actually going to create a lot of revenue, build a lot of relationships, get out there faster than the traditional methods, okay? So we were able to get them in all these different locations. It became the world, as a result, the world's first automated eyewear kiosk, created multiple revenue streams for him, an app online banking system, so therefore you could use your credit card, your debit card, or cash to do your wash of your eyewear. Located in malls, car washes, hotels, and etc. This is what's cool. In just 2.5 years, we're now ready for exit strategy. This would have taken traditionally, through traditional methods, business development and branding and marketing, would have taken about 10 years. we got it to a point where we got some heavy hitters that want to buy this company. Here's another company here, another case study called Music Wizard. They had a different name than this before. Again, no business model, okay? How you plan making money, no real product, no real investors, no customers, no experienced team, and no practical rollout from A to B to C, all the way to end zone, right? Again, going through a strategy session, 3-day intensive, and then coming out on execution. First phase, strategy. Second phase is building the right identity. So we came up with this identity for them called Music Wizard, because they had all these different sub-brands that would be a family of brands. What it does, this product, it teaches kids how to play the piano through a video game first, and later on transitioning to an actual real piano, okay? So these are just some of the GUI interfaces, how the video screens looked. You get to select the game that you want to play, and as these key elements are crossing over the keys, they actually transform. We designed everything for them, all the background, 3D animation, did a lot of intense programming for this video game. These are whatever we call the actual objects, okay, in the game. So we create a whole family of game objects that they actually then started to look at as far as intellectual property to increase its value. And then this is how a child would play on the keyboard, okay, as you're learning to play. So as each object crosses over that barrier, you just hit the right associated colored key, and then pretty soon you're playing Beethoven. They've even proven that even a 5-year-old starts playing Beethoven through this method, okay? This is the packaging. So the packaging is super important. So the first thing is coming up with a strategy again. How is this game, who's this game targeted to, and how we plan getting out there into the marketplace? What stores should we be in? What retail stores? What partners should we have? Okay. So we went through this whole process, and then where should we enter to win awards, which we won plenty of different awards, okay, through established magazine to build that credibility. Okay, these are all the different awards we've won. We were in Wired Magazine, Mac Live, Feature Music. And again, it's all through strategy. It wasn't just done arbitrarily. We had a clear roadmap from a 3-day master blueprint to now building the entire brand. We created the name, the brand mark, the website, the game itself, the product, the packaging, everything. And we designed it in a way that would stand out from their competition, because we understood who were the competition, but what niche can we fit into that others were not actually occupying. Again, what niche were we fitting into that others were not occupying, okay? And we made deals. We made deals with Fisher-Price. This is a startup company, you guys, and we're able to be world-class within a couple years. So we ended up selling a license opportunity to actually Fisher-Price. So when you come out with your idea, you need to be thinking all the different ways that you could bring in revenue. And a lot of times, quite honestly, is actually having an actual license agreement with a company. You keep your intellectual property, and then you license that intellectual property to other companies that make sense for you, okay? So as a measurable result, what happened was that we're able to raise several rounds of funds, quick PR, exposure, placement in major retail stores, millions in evaluation. They already had an evaluation from attorneys that were worth millions, multiple license deals, reach multiple channels. Again, a single idea, able to strategically gain a lot of footing into the market by having the right brand, a world-class brand, okay? Really important to get. So I want you to think about this. On a scale from 1 to 5, how strong is your core position, okay? Do you know why your brand exists? And it cannot be about making money. It must be about what difference are you making? What drives you out of bed to work on your project? Do you know what legacy you want to leave behind for others based on your idea? Like the iPhone, look at the legacy it's leaving behind, where now it's transformed how we use the phone. It's no longer a phone, it's really a computer. Do you know your 5 core values? Okay, there should always be core values in a company culture, like integrity, honesty, transparency, hardworking, innovation. These are all values. These are the values that govern the culture with inside your company to the outside of who you want as customers, partners, sponsors, the list goes on. Are you clear? Are you clear of your core service and product? Are you really clear about what differentiates you from your competition? So now I'm going to talk about now a service, because some of you are in a service, most of you I know are in the product industry, but again, some of you at iCAN here are in the service arena. So I'm going to talk about the Flying Dutchman. They could not grow for 40 years. It's a liquor store in the Bahamas. No brand awareness. No one really knew who they were. No equity in the market, meaning that they're just getting by on a balance sheet from profits to loss, but really weren't considering how they're building their equity over time so their company's worth more from future earnings. This is what makes the stock market move. It's based on future earnings, based on the equity of the company because of the brand. Okay, so they're lost in the colored space, not sustainable, and definitely not scalable. Okay, this is the original mark here. Okay, Flying Dutchman, and you had to actually order through the bars to get your liquor. So it really wasn't very friendly, right? And this is the Bahamas, but they want to raise the standards of how people do business in the Bahamas and how they actually interact in a liquor store, okay? So we went through a massive 3-day strategy session. Again, the position, the business, the brand, and the market. This is the logo. The reason why I call it logo is because it cannot be reproduced, okay, to the size of a dime. You can't do an embroideries with it. It doesn't distinguish itself strong enough from their competitors, and it's not really trademarkable, okay? This is what we came up with as far as designs. This is what's called a brand mark. It can reduce the size of a dime. It's simple, it's bold, it's memorable, it's trademarkable, okay? So we came up with all these different concepts after we got done with the strategy of how we're gonna position them. This is what we finally landed on, Flying Dutchman. This is the before, and here's the after, okay? So you can see, you can make embroideries with this. We could do stamping with this. We create our own private labeling to put on the labels of the actual liquor bottles themselves, okay? This is a story that we started to create for them, the Flying Dutchman. Why people, what is the story behind the Flying Dutchman? So with your product, it's not, right now you have a commodity. You do not have a brand. The way you create it into a brand is when you could actually start articulating a story, creating an experience that people want to engage themselves in from your customers. Right now, most people here listening to me, you have an idea, but it has not been converted from a product to a brand, okay? A product is where it doesn't have any personality, doesn't have any voice, tone to it. There isn't anything that you can tell a story behind it just yet. A brand is where you actually create an expectation that's matched to the experience, and it's storytelling that's involved as well, okay? Really important to get. So we want to have it where the Flying Dutchman and liquor store was not just a liquor store, but it was actually a place where people could gather, because we want to create it as an actual location, a destination location, okay? Where the Flying Dutchman lands. So these are posters that we designed for them. This is the website that we designed for them. You can see it's all custom. The problem with website designers nowadays, unfortunately, everyone's doing the exact same thing. You need to differentiate yourself from everybody else. And that means really looking at what is authentic, what will create an authenticity to your brand identity that actually will resonate to your customers, okay? So we created this whole front end. We had another company that did all the back end, with all the SKUs, with all the liquor they carry and all the products. This is the opening of the franchise. We're now getting into a franchise, like a licensing franchise agreement. This is the grand opening, okay? And what we did uniquely that was a disruptor is that we decided to have radio shows and media that people could actually come in and actually taste the different products. So it wasn't just a place to shop. It was actually a place for people to commute and gather and get acquainted. It was like a social club, okay? Very different than how liquor stores are done. And this is the vehicle wrap that we created for them. So the great thing is that we're able to have full ownership of the Flying Dutchman. We never did for 40 years. We created as a heritage and personality brand, 5 franchises in 1.5 years where they couldn't grow for 40 years. Again, the brand starts working for you, okay? Most companies, they have a commodity and it's like pushing a big boulder uphill, which is not working for you. And it takes a lot more energy, a lot more work, a lot more money, and a lot more time. And unfortunately, people never get to the end zone, okay? So of course, they had a radical increase in sales and a new standard in their category, okay? So I want to thank you for participating and watching this special presentation for iCAN 2020. To all the inventors out there and business owners. And I just showed you some of the shortcuts of how to build a world-class brand so you could attract more business, more customers, more revenue, right? So what I'm gonna offer is a 20-minute consulting call. Just email me at howard@howcreative.com. This is my social media media handle, excuse me, like a Facebook /Howard A. Lim, LinkedIn. You can find me through Howard A. Lim. Okay. Wishing you the very best. And I want to thank Mansook and also the committee for another great iCAN 2020. Thank you.